have to use your outside voice now.
I can use my outside voice. It's fine.
You sure you got that muted?
Now it's on mute, now it's off
Okay.
mute.
Is it a battery?
I mean, just like, it
Have to put that in there on.
says it's off, and it says my voice is going through.
Did you turn the switch on back there on the console? That's on back there.
No, it's not. Now go.
Okay. Ooh, that's loud.
Turn it down, Hannah. We're helping.
So, welcome, thank you for coming tonight. Happy year, and those who are on recording, or happy that you're watching and tuning in. So,
Ooh.
that was loud. I knew that was going to happen one time.
Yeah.
So, any prayer requests? We got prayer, people to pray for. Odom, the Mitchell family, Sonny Quarter, keep her in your prayers. Sarah McGlowhorn, Sherry Kramer. Does anybody know? I think she got released from the hospital. She's doing better. Blazel Hart. Basil. Oh, that's it. Okay. The Madisons and Punk Sloan.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure I'm pronouncing this stuff right. Punk Sloan. So keep those in your prayers. Is there any more prayer requests tonight?
My father, he's already on the prayer list, but he has some more procedures and stuff coming up for his Parkinson's.
Gotcha. Keep them in prayer.
Uncle Jesse Ayers found out today he's got double pneumonia. He's home, but he's pretty sick.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there any else? If not, we'll go to the announcements. So, for the announcements, Awana starts next week, same time. We'll be doing supper at 6 o'clock, and then we will go out at the normal time, about 6:45. Then regular church starts at 7. Grow groups for the home groups have started back. We do them at different times, so if you need any kind of times, come to me or come to Mike Franklin, and we can give you the time for those small groups. And they should be posted with the different teachers, so you should be able to find that, whichever one that fits you best. But we are starting those back. A Vision Team relaunch is January 10th, 6 to 7 p.m. in the Fellowship Hall. So if you guys want to be a part of that, you guys come out. Women's of Worth meeting is January 21st. It starts back January 21st at 6:30 p.m. and ends around 8:30 or whenever they choose to. Then we have our missions of the Navajo Missions, Beloved Church, Costa Rica Mission, and the Philippines Mission work. Is there anything else? If not, then we can go to a moment of prayer. And then Grandpa, if you don't mind leading us after that.
Our Heavenly Father, we come now, thank you for all the blessings that we gave you for the promise. We come now, we want to run with this people we, that we got to play with that prayer list. You know who they are. Thank you, want to get things that you want to be within. Give you about the way, that you let us message tonight. Thank you. Give us a resource for it. Thank you for the case that you work with. Thank you for those. Thank you for our strong ministry, that I can, Lord,
So I'm not going to keep you guys long tonight. I'm never good for an hour, so I don't know what to tell you. Been thinking about a lot of things lately with everything that's going on, and kind of where we are with God and where I am with God. And I don't really wrestle with things a lot, but that's one thing I wrestle is constantly, where am I at with God? What am I supposed to be doing? Where am I supposed to move forward? And, what does God really want from me? So we're going to be in Genesis. Well, I got a joke for you guys first. My wife, she thought it was stupid, but I don't care. So, there's two twins. They're twin boys. And one's name is Juan and one's name is Amal. And they're twin boys, so their mother only keeps, one photo of them in her purse. So as she's going around, she'll show people the photo, and one day somebody asked her, why do you only keep one photo of your kids? And she said, if you've seen Juan, you've seen them all. Well, thank you for laughing. The teens never laugh, so it makes it feel a little better. So we'll be in Genesis chapter 1. We're going to kind of go through two different stories and just kind of look at them and maybe compare and contrast, and then kind of see how they both work together and where we really, as human beings, kind of failed. So in Genesis chapter 1, I'm just going to kind of sum it up till we get to verse 28, or 26 actually. So in Genesis chapter 1, we see the creation story. We see that God has created the earth, He's created the light, and it's great. As our great creator God, He's doing an amazing job, obviously, because you see it around you. He creates the earth, and it's beautiful. It's full of water. And then He goes, okay, you know what? Let's get some land in here. Let's separate the land from the water, and I'm going to create that. And then, I'm going to make day and night. I'm going to make the sun. I'm going to make the moon. And we see in the creation story that God creates all these amazing things. He creates plants. He creates beasts. But then when we get to verse 26, He says, and God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in His image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female He created He them. God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So here we see here that God has created the earth. Pretty much everything that was to be created, God had done that at this point, and man was His last creation. And He says, we're going to make man in our image. He's talking about Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, God, the Trinity, the Godhead. He says, I'm going to make man, and let's make man in our image. How amazing is that? Let me just ask you that real quick. How amazing is that? That God decided that this being so special, that I want to make him in our image. Not just some random thing, but there's special and there's love in this creation. God's love. And then not only that, after He creates man, and He creates woman, He says, you know what? I'm going to give you dominion over everything. Everything that this earth holds, everything that there is on this earth, I'm going to give you dominion over because I love you so much. And I want you to love me, and I want you to worship me. And your whole being of creation is to worship me. And live with me. And have a relationship with me. That's why I created you. And God loved the man, and He loved the woman. And what an amazing love that was. And what an amazing creation that God has created. So we move on. And we understand what happens after man's created. The woman is created, and the rib is took out of Adam, and He creates the woman, and through Quaid logic, just plugging things in. I'm not saying this is completely correct, but I don't think they were in the garden too much longer after that. Because God tells them, be fruitful. Replenish the earth. Have kids. But you don't find kids in the garden with them. So just take this as it is. I'm just saying my point of view. This isn't true. But I don't think they were in the garden much longer after God created Eve. Just my personal opinion. So you see that Eve actually goes to the serpent, and the serpent's on the tree, and he deceives Eve, right? We know the story. He deceives Eve, and Eve eats of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She wasn't supposed to do that. That was the one thing that God told her, do not do this. That God told man, do not do this. Do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you do, you're going to sin against me. You're going to be dead. And what did they do? They ate of the tree. The one thing that God said, don't do this. I'm going to give you everything. Everything that you could possibly want, everything that you could possibly imagine, I'm going to give it to you. But I'm just going to tell you this one thing, don't eat of that tree. And what did humanity do? They went and they ate the tree, and they sinned against God. So humanity's kicked out of the garden. God says, you can't be in here anymore. I'm going to lock the garden away from you. I'm going to put an angel in the front, and he's not going to let you in. You cannot come back in here. You failed me. So when we move forward, we know that Adam was sent out of the garden. We know that mankind was, Cain and Abel were born. Cain killed Abel. It was the first murder in history. And then from there, mankind pretty well plummeted. Sin was so crazy and prevalent at the time, by the time we got to Noah's day, is who we're going to be looking at next. There was nobody good left on earth. The earth at that point was just corrupt in sin, and humanity was just turned away from God, and God pretty much said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. So if you look at Genesis chapter 6, verses 5 through 8, it says, and God saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping things and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. So man was so corrupt. Man had strayed so far away from God that God said, I got to wipe this out. They're so far away. They've strayed so far away from me that I have to repent from them. I have to turn away from mankind because they're so deep in sin. But who do we see that God's Spirit? It says, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah, the one man who was a great man who followed God. He found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and the Lord was going to spare him and his family. If you go to Genesis 6:14, we're just going to keep walking down. So we know the story. God's going to do what? He says, make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of. The length of an ark shall be 300 cubits, and breadth of the 50 cubits, and the height of 30 cubits. And we skip down to 17. It says, behold, I even do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and of everything that is in the earth shall die. So God's going to wipe them out. He's made his decision. When God makes his decision, that's just how it's going to go. So it's time for this flood to come. So, we know the story. We keep moving on. And what happens? Am I saying Jonah or Noah? Noah, okay. I keep getting them mixed up. So we see that Noah goes into the ark. God says, it's time to get into the ark, Noah. It's time to go. And Noah's like, okay, let's do it. God loads all the animals up in the ark. God loads Noah and his family up in the ark. And they're in there for 40 days. And it's funny how the story of creation has many similarities to the story of Noah. We're not going to go into so many, but the waters cover the face of the earth. That's one of them. But there's so many other similarities, and it's so interesting that God had wiped out humanity at this point. The only people who were living are Noah and his family. So we move on to Genesis chapter 8. Genesis chapter 8, verses 20. I have ads on my phone. I don't know why. So Noah gets out of the ark. Dry land finally appears. God breathes, and the land and the water recedes. And the land finally appears. And the first thing Noah does, which is great, and it says, and Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took every clean beast of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of a man's heart is evil. For his youth neither I again smite any more, even everything living as I have done. So we see Noah worships the Lord. After all this happened, Noah worships the Lord. He sacrifices on the altar, and he worships the Lord. And that's fantastic. He's following God. For 600 years, Noah has kept faith in God. Because it hadn't flooded before then. And Noah kept faith that God wasn't wrong. He believed God in what he said. And even here we see Noah is worshiping God. And he's showing his faith in God. But like always, what happens? We move to chapter 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons. Verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And fear you, and the dread you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herbs have I given you all things. We see again that God once again gives humanity dominion over earth. He gives them the opportunity to have dominion over earth, and every crawling thing and everything that liveth gives them meat, and every herb that he grows is man's once again to have dominion over. So what does Noah do? In chapter 9, verse 20, it says, and Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered with his tent. So we see, what's the next thing that happens? Noah worships God. He's having faith in God. And then he goes and grows a vineyard, and what happens? He gets drunk. He sins. God has made pretty much a new start for humanity. God wiped all the wicked out. He wiped all those people out who were completely wicked against him. God gave Noah a completely new start. And what does mankind do? We go and we sin again. Why is that? Well, because sin covers the earth, right? Sin started in the beginning, and it's still here. Sin never went away. And we see that Noah gets drunk, and his son Ham ends up finding him. And he goes and tells his brothers, and his brothers go and they cover their father up. Because it's shameful. It's shameful. So let me ask you this. I know everybody's heard these stories. You know, Quaid, why are you teaching these stories? We've all heard them. Do you know a common thing that's happening in America right now? We're destroying history. It's pretty common that's happening now. Ripping down statues. That history didn't really happen. But let me tell you this. The Bible is full of history, and it's full of history we need to learn from. It's full of stories that we need to read and understand. It's full of stories that they did great or they did terrible. But we can take something from every one of those stories, New or Old Testament. It all applies. History is there for us to understand. History is there for us to learn from, correct? We can all agree on that. So if we try to wipe out that history, we're just going to repeat it. We're going to fail. Just like they did before. We're going to keep failing. And we read these stories Even the story of Noah, which was, 5,000, 6,000, I don't know how long ago. It's a long time ago. When we read these stories, we can still learn something from them. And if you're a Christian and you say that, oh, we've heard these stories a million times, Quay, they're the same thing over and over again. That's the point. Because apparently we're not getting it. Apparently we're not reading these stories hard enough for it to go in our mind and go, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. Because being me, I keep doing the stupid things that I do. I keep repeating the same sins that I really shouldn't be repeating. And when I do them, I'm like, I shouldn't do this, but I do it anyways. It's almost laughable how hard it is to not sin. And not keep committing sins. But the fact is that we cannot stop it. Humanity, even if we got a new start right now, even if God wiped them out some other way without a flood, even if God wiped all humanity out and He saved just a few, it would come back to the same problem. That we are a corrupt people. We are full of sin. But the beauty is that even from the beginning, God had a plan. His name was Jesus. And even from the beginning, that was set in motion. Because we say, well, I've heard these stories. I've heard them. Well, then learn from them. You know, we need to be closer to God. We need to grow closer to God. We need to want to grow closer to Jesus. But are we? Are we really? Do we really have that drive? As a church, do we have that drive? I know Corona is bad, and it does affect people. But is that really going to stop me from doing the duty that I have to my God? Is that really going to slow my faith down? Because video isn't meeting together. Coming and meeting in the church of God, coming and meeting together is what God intended for us to meet together. And if we're not doing that, we're failing. Yes, I completely understand. That's a scary thing. But there's been a lot of scary things. And to push church off, to push what we're supposed to be doing off, because I get distracted. Let me just be honest with you right now. It's crazy how distracted I am all the time. He'll tell me to go send an email, and then 2 hours later, he'll go, did you send that email? Oh, no. Sorry. I got distracted. And then a day later, did you ever send that email? Yeah, of course. I sent an email. But let me tell you, that rolls over to what I do for God. Because I get distracted from what's really important. And that's presenting this Word of God. It's not supposed to slow me down. Nothing is supposed to slow me down. Not a virus. Not a government. Not people coming out and pulling you out of your house. That's not supposed to slow us down as Christians. I heard somebody say one time, they said, as Christians, we seem to run away a lot. What are we really supposed to do? We're supposed to run towards the problems. We're supposed to run towards the people with the issues. We're supposed to present the gospel to the people with the problems. But what do? We say, oh, we don't want to be a part of that. We don't want to be in that issue. Let's just kind of step back and see how it goes. No, we need to be up there face first in the issue. And we need to be presenting God to these people because this is their time of distress. This is their time when they have their issues. When they're in their issues is when God needs to be presented to them. Because He's the only true way out. He's the only true answer. And if we keep reading the Bible, we'll learn from those mistakes that they made. Or we'll learn from the accomplishments that they had. But let me tell you, most of those accomplishments, all of those accomplishments, were through faith in God. In Tuscaloosa, I just want to ask, where is your faith? Where are we with God? We need to really ask ourselves that question. Where am I with God? Is my faith booming? I was actually going to do a lesson Sunday before Corona, or that whole breakout happened. My lesson title was going to be, what would they call you? And it was because, Stephen or David was really close with God, and there all these people had these, such a faithful guy. Let me ask you that question. What would they call you? Would they say, oh, he had the Spirit of God? God was with him that whole time. I saw God in his life every second of the day. Or would they say, they never really showed up to do God's work? They said they were a Christian. I didn't really see it. They said they had faith. I didn't really see it. They said all these things, but they never really did. And if there's no action behind your words, they're meaningless. If there's no actions behind what you say, who really cares? So I ask you this. If you don't know where you're at with God, even if you're saved, if you don't know where you're at with God right now, the only advice that I can really give you is get into His Word. Read the Bible. Because that's the only way you're going to get on the same page with Him, is if you read His Word, the thing that was presented to us to give us our answers as Christians. And I would encourage you to stay in that Word. Don't strive away. Don't fall away. Stay faithful. Would you lead us in prayer?
And Father, we come before this time to study your word, God. I just pray that we just take hold for tonight. We just evaluate ourselves and honestly just look to see where are we with you and are we following the word that you have us to. How can we serve you more? We just put you at the top of the list. And just be honored and glorified and exalted by what we were made to worship you. And just pray for forgiveness for all the times that I failed with. Just pray that you would be with our church and just help us to realize that now is the time for us to move forward. And now is the time that we need to just take every opportunity, every door that you open, to boldly present your word to a lost and dying world. And we just pray that as we leave from here tonight, that we would forget what we learned and just be about your business and more engaged in the word than we ever have been. That you forgive us for we fail you so often. Let's not be distracted. In Jesus' name we pray.